we actually have increased annual government spending by $300 billion a year. For the budget before COVID was $477 billion a year. Today, this year, right now where we sit, we're going to spend $788 billion.
Come back. Well, it's clear Labor's pathological obsession with big spending isn't going anywhere. We learned today that the federal government's total borrowings figure is due to hit the $1 trillion mark.
Right, let's have a yarn about something that should be keeping every single one of us up at night. Something that the politicians in Canberra are desperately hoping you won't notice while they're busy giving themselves pay rises and flying around in private jets. Something that is going to have a devastating impact on your life, your kids' lives, and your grandkids' lives. I'm talking about Australia's $1 trillion debt crisis. And mate, I'm not exaggerating when I say that this is the single biggest threat to our country's future. It's a ticking time bomb that makes a bushfire look like a backyard barbecue. And when it explodes, it's going to take all of us down with it. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of how we got into this mess, I want to make something crystal clear. This is not a partisan issue. This is not about Labor versus Liberal. This is about the entire political class, the entire Canberra bubble, and their complete and utter failure to manage our country's finances. They've been on a drunken spending spree for decades, and now we're the ones who are going to have to pay the price. And speaking of paying the price, if you're sick and tired of being lied to by the mainstream media and the political class, then you need to join our Patreon. We're the resistance, the ones who are not afraid to tell the truth, the ones who are not afraid to take on the establishment. We're building a movement of Australians who are ready to fight back, and we need your help. The link is in the description. Join us and be part of the solution.
And so what we're observing is firms that can't compete anymore because their costs have gone up, either because of energy or because of industrial relations arrangements that make it hard for them to do what they need to do.
So just how bad is it? Well, let me put it this way. By the end of this financial year, Australia's gross debt will be over $1 trillion. That's a 1 with 12 zeros after it, mate. It's a number so big that it makes Gina Rinehart's bank account look like loose change in your couch cushions. To put it in perspective, if you were to spend $1 million every single day, it would take you over 2,700 years to spend $1 trillion. That's longer than it's been since Jesus walked the earth. That's how much money we're talking about. And it's not just the sheer size of the debt that's more frightening than finding a redback in your dunny. It's the speed at which it's growing. Just a few years ago, in 2019, our national debt was around $534 billion. Today, it's almost double that. We're adding billions of dollars to our national credit card every single month, like a teenager who's just discovered online shopping. And there's no end in sight. The government's own budget papers show that our debt is going to continue to grow for years to come, reaching over $1.2 trillion by 2028. This isn't just some abstract number on a spreadsheet that bureaucrats wave around like a flag at the footy. This is a real and present danger to our way of life. It's a weight that is crushing our economy like a ute loaded with too many stubbies, making it harder for businesses to invest, for families to get by, and for young people to have any hope of a prosperous future. It's a crisis that is unfolding right before our very eyes, and yet the politicians in Canberra are acting like nothing is wrong, about as concerned as a wombat crossing a highway. Now, you might be thinking, well, as long as we can afford to make the repayments, what's the big deal? And that's where you'd be wrong. Dead wrong. More wrong than wearing thongs to a wedding. Because the interest payments on our national debt are a ticking time bomb that makes Crocodile Dundee's knife look like a butter spreader.
For the Australian economy.
I think that's for the Australian people to judge. Judge it yourself. That extra $300 billion a year that amounts to $30,000 per household, or about 10 million households in Australia. So about you're paying, or your government is spending on your behalf, which you'll have to pay back, $30,000 extra a year.
Right now, we're spending over $41 billion a year just on interest payments. That's more than we spend on schools, more than we spend on hospitals, and more than we spend on our entire defence force. It's like paying rent on a house you'll never own, except the house is made of debt and the landlord lives overseas. And it's only going to get worse. As interest rates rise faster than a tourist sunburn in Darwin, so do our interest payments. The government's own budget papers show that our interest payments are going to skyrocket to over $61 billion a year in the coming years. That's $61 billion of your money, the taxpayers' money, that is being flushed down the toilet every single year like a meat pie at a vegan convention. Money that could be used to build new hospitals, new schools, new roads. Money that could be used to lower your taxes, to help you with the cost of living, to give your kids a better future. But instead, it's being used to pay the interest on a debt that was created by the reckless spending of our politicians. It's a national disgrace, a scandal bigger than finding out your mate's been watering down the beer at the pub. And here's the real kicker. Most of this money isn't even going to Australian investors. It's going to foreign banks, foreign corporations, and foreign governments. That's right, 2/3 of our national debt is owned by foreigners. So we're not just paying interest, we're sending our national wealth overseas faster than a cricket ball of Steve Smith's bat, making other countries richer while we get poorer. It's like inviting someone over for a barbecue and then paying them to eat your food. And what do the politicians have to say about all of this? Well, that depends on which side of the political fence they're sitting on, mate. When the other mob is in power, they're all doom and gloom, carrying on like a pork chop about a debt and deficit disaster. But as soon as they get their hands on the Treasury benches, it's a different story. Suddenly, debt doesn't matter. Suddenly, spending money we don't have is the responsible thing to do.
And we would be inheriting $1 trillion in debt, as Katie said. And we don't pretend that an incoming government of either political persuasion can turn that ship around quickly.
Take our current treasurer, Jim Chalmers. Back in 2021, when the other mob was in power, he was singing a very different tune. He was warning of $1 trillion in debt and not enough to show for it. He was talking about generational debt without the generational dividend. He was accusing the government of waste and mismanagement. And you know what? He was absolutely spot on. But now that he's the one in charge, he's doing the exact same thing. He's delivered a budget with $1 trillion in debt, with deficits as far as the eye can see, and with nothing to show for it but more waste and mismanagement. And when he was called out on his hypocrisy by journalist Andrew Clennell, what did he do? He did what all politicians do when they're caught red-handed. He pivoted faster than a sheepdog at a country show. He blamed the other mob. He talked about his economic vision for the long term. He talked about building Australia's future. He talked about everything except the one thing that matters. The fact that he is bankrupting our country, the fact that he is selling our future to the highest bidder like a dodgy car salesman flogging a lemon. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us on the brink of a financial catastrophe bigger than the time someone thought it was a good idea to make Vegemite ice cream. It leaves us with $1 trillion debt that is growing faster than weeds after a summer storm, with interest payments that are spiralling out of control like a shopping trolley in a car park, and with a political class that is either too stupid or too corrupt to do anything about it. This is not a problem that is going to go away on its own like a bad haircut. This is a problem that is going to get worse, much worse, before it gets better. And when it does, it's going to be the ordinary, hard-working Australians who are going to pay the price. It's going to be you, your family, and your children who are going to have to bear the burden of this debt for generations to come. But it doesn't have to be this way, mate. We can fight back. We can demand a government that is fiscally responsible, a government that lives within its means like the rest of us have to, a government that puts the interests of the Australian people before the interests of the political class.
If we want the Australian economy to be bigger, we need the Australian government to be smaller.
We can demand a future where our children are not saddled with a mountain of debt, a future where they have the same opportunities that we did, or better yet, even more opportunities. And that's why we need you to join our Patreon. We're building a movement of Australians who are not afraid to take on the establishment, who are not afraid to demand a better future for our country. We're the resistance, and we're not going to stop until we've taken our country back from the corrupt and incompetent politicians who are running it into the ground faster than a tourist driving through the outback without a map. The link is in the description. Join us and be part of the solution.
The truth is that we have deliberately chosen the economic purgatory we inhabit. I want to say that again. We've deliberately chosen it. It's not an act of God. It's not an accident. It's not due to the 24-hour media cycle and gutless politicians. We chose it as a society.
But the most unforgivable part of this whole mess is the fact that our politicians are not just bankrupting our country. They're bankrupting our children's future. They're stealing from the next generation to pay for their own incompetence and greed, like a drunk uncle raiding the Christmas fund. They're saddling our kids with a mountain of debt that will hang over their heads longer than a hangover after Australia Day. Think about it, mate. Every dollar that we borrow today is a dollar that our children will have to pay back tomorrow. Every dollar of interest that we pay today is a dollar that can't be spent on their education, their healthcare, or their future. We are literally sacrificing our children's future to pay for our own mistakes. It's a moral outrage bigger than putting pineapple on pizza, a betrayal of the most sacred trust that we have as a society, the trust between one generation and the next. And what kind of future are we leaving them? A future of higher taxes, lower living standards, and diminished opportunities. A future where they will have to work harder and longer just to have the same quality of life that we did. A future where the Australian dream is about as real as a drop bear tourist story. This is the legacy of our political class. This is the legacy of their greed, their incompetence, and their utter disregard for the future of our country. They're treating our national finances like a drunk sailor on shore leave, and our kids are the ones who'll be cleaning up the mess. To see the latest Australian crisis, click this video here.